Hello, and welcome to Conquering Finale. My name is Jason Lafredo, and today we are back at it with cooperating with chords. We are in the home stretch of this category, so hang with me. We're getting there. We're dealing with chord playback today, and for better or worse, Finale can play back your chord symbols for you if you want. You just have to make sure that in the chord menu, the Enable Chord Playback option is selected. Now, I say for better or worse because I'm going to show you sort of the results of this kind of crazy algorithm that Finale will give you. So I'm going to just mute the guitar part here so we can just hear this in the piano part, and you'll hear all of these chords play back. And what's weird is a couple things here. First of all, you're hearing that drone A through these second two measures here because with these rhythmic notations, you do actually have to have some sort of note. I could have muted those notes in a certain way, but I just wanted to point that out. That sometimes those notes will sort of override the chords themselves. Now you could actually fill this in with chords, which in my opinion is a better solution, and then actually mute these chords, which I'll show you in a second. But anyway, you can sort of hear what's going on with these chords, particularly in the second measure. These chords get really, really high, and they don't really sound very natural, particularly for the piano. It's important to kind of figure out what's going on with the algorithm here. And Finale does this in a very specific way. You know, it plays back the chord based on the root, and then it adds either just a simple major triad or the minor triad, or if there's a suffix, it'll keep adding the chords on top of that root. The thing is that Finale will calculate the roots in a very specific way. So there's basically a starting root, and then every pitch above the starting root for the key is where the root is. So in the key of C major, you know, you get the C, the middle C is the starting root. In the key of C major, the G will start on that G, and it will build the triad from there, right? So it's all parallel, all the way up the chromatics, and which means that your B major chord is all the way up here, you know, starting a major 7 above middle C. So if you have a progression that goes from B to C, what you'll hear is B, C, which is, you know, it's not exactly natural, but that's the algorithm. And then the thing of this is that the key signature determines where the starting root is. So as you can see, here's where basically starting from C all the way up to B for the key signatures as well. So in the key of A, you know, the starting root is this A right here, which is a sixth above middle C, which means that these chords start to get higher, and even the C major chord is an octave higher than the normal C major chord down here. So in the key of A, you know, your G sharp or A flat chord is all the way up here. All right, and basically, you know, like I said, it builds the triads or the suffixes on top of that. So for things like this F sharp 9, you know, it starts with the F sharp 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th. You know, so you're getting your F sharp 9 all the way up there in the key of A. So it's a little bit strange how this algorithm works. It's not very natural at all. And in fact, I kind of dictated out exactly how Finale is playing this exact passage with notes, so you can kind of see this. So it's starting with A, D, E7. There's the F sharp 9, and then you get crazy stuff like the 13, where it's playing the root 3rd, 5th, 7th, 9th, and the 13th all the way up there. So that's how you're getting that crazy sound on that F13 chord. So again, for better or worse, this is exactly the algorithm that Finale is choosing to, or Finale is using to play back these chords. Now, with the suffixes, if you watch the suffix editor video, you may know that there's an option within the chord suffix editor to set the playback for these suffixes. So from here, with this suffix key number offset, you can actually do that. So this is essentially telling you how many half steps above the root it will play these particular pitches in that chord. And you can change these if you want, right? The issue is that you can't actually change where the roots are. So the fact that F is so high on the piano, you can't ever change that. You can only ever change the suffix key number offsets above the root. So if you want to watch a little bit more about how to do this, check out the chord suffix editor video. Now, one other thing about this is that Finale will play back any capital letter like this as a major chord. However, if you type in a lowercase a in this case, Finale will actually play that back as a minor chord. Right, so that's you know, because I know that the lowercase is sometimes will sometimes represent a minor chord. The weird thing about this is that if you try and write something like lowercase a7 to get an A minor 7 chord, Finale looks at the playback from the suffix in this case. So the way that the seventh suffix is set up, it's set up as a major or a major chord with a minor 7. So it's going to play A C sharp E G. Right, it's going to play the dominant 7, not the minor 7 here. So it's only the lowercase letter when it's by itself that will actually play back a minor triad in that way. Now, by default, Finale will play back. If you look at the chord definition dialog box, there's an option for play here. And by default, Finale will only ever play back the root and the suffix unless you make some changes here. Now, we can choose to play back the alternate bass, but in a lot of cases, if the chord doesn't have an alternate bass, it won't actually play anything. In the case of this A over C sharp, we can certainly check that. And what you'll hear is that one chord will have that bass, alternate bass note in it now. And it's nice and low, so we get that random C sharp popping out all the way down there. But that's how that works. Also, you can, as you can see, you can play back the fretboards. And actually, I believe this is a much better way to do this, particularly with guitar parts. So actually, let me go back to the score manager. I'm going to unmute the guitar and mute the piano so that now we're hearing the guitar. And again, by default, Finale will only play back the root and suffix. So if I were to play back this guitar part, you'd hear it in the same range as the piano, which actually some of these high chords won't even play back because it's outside the range of the guitar. But the better solution for this, I've found, is to actually mute the root and suffix and play back the fretboard, because the fretboard is absolute. You know, the tuning of the fretboard is what it is. It's in the range that it's in. So whatever the fretboard is, it's going to play back that exactly as it is. So, of course, we can do these one by one, choose the fretboard, uncheck these guys, but there's a better way to do this, of course, which is go to the utilities, change chords, and in the play section, just uncheck both of these first options, check the fretboard option. We can actually check the alternate bass if we want, and then click OK. And so we've just made a change to all of these individual chords so that this F sharp 9 chord, for example, is playing back the fretboard in alternate bass if there is one. So it's not playing the root and suffix with that weird algorithm which pushes these chords really high. And actually, this is going to sound better. Kind of see that it's playing back in sort of a normal range for the guitar, which is a lot better. So I actually like that solution. And interestingly, we can do this for the piano too. Like, even if you're not showing the fretboards, every chord definition has a fretboard assigned to it. You can see that the fretboard ID here is 1. It's interesting because we can do the same function here, change chords, mute the root and suffix, play back the fretboard and the alternate bass, click OK. Oops, and I gotta go and let's mute the guitar and play the piano. And what you'll hear is the piano playing back with these fretboard voicings, right? Which is going to sound a little bit better. It's going to put it in a slightly more normal range. Obviously, that's a lot better than hearing those chords, you know, played back with this crazy algorithm where everything gets pushed really high. So I found that to be an interesting solution if you're really using chord playback, is to, you know, choose to play back the fretboards instead of the roots and the suffixes. The issue that you do have to be aware of with that is that some suffixes will not have fretboard diagrams. So if you end up with a suffix that doesn't have a fretboard diagram, that chord is going to be muted for that particular chord suffix. So you just have to be careful when you do that. So here's really the important part of this lesson, which is actually how do you mute these chords? Because I think that's probably the thing that people are more interested in is how do I stop Finale from playing back these chords? Because as you can see, that the crazy algorithm doesn't make it sound so good. So there's several ways. I kind of showed you a few of them already, which is that individually you can of course just uncheck all of these options, and now this A chord will be completely mute when you play back. Right? The other option is obviously if you make a selection, so we can choose to just mute these two measures here, utilities, change, chords, and then just make sure that all of these are empty. That will ensure that nothing is playing back for those 6 chords, and that will be mute until you get to that third measure, right? So that's sort of muting one section at a time. We can mute the chords staff by staff, and that requires going into the score manager and opening up the triangle here. And when you open up a grand staff like the piano, you get 2 separate triangles for the hands, depending on where your chords are positioned. If it's in the left hand or the right hand, you might need to do this. So in this case, there is a whole line for the chords, so we could actually just mute the chords on the piano here. And this will play back notes for the piano, but in layers 1 through 4, but it will not play back the chords now. So you're muting the chords in the piano part, right? So if I have the guitar unmuted, the only thing you're going to hear now is the guitar chords being played back. And you will hear these notes in this measure in the piano. Right, so that's sort of the staff by staff option for muting. And then finally, probably what most of you should be doing is just uncheck enable chord playback. Now this will just completely mute chord playback from every staff in the entire file, and you will never have to deal with that crazy sounding algorithm ever again. And this is actually how I have my file set up. I just don't deal with enable chord playback. And of course, with slashes and rhythmic notation, you can always put chords underneath these measures, right? In these slash notations, currently I just have rests, but if I wanted to, I could just, play some chords in here, and they'll get hidden by the slash notation, and that will likely be a better result than actually letting Finale try and calculate how to play these chords back. So that's one option as well. And then finally, the one last crazy piece of this, let me just enable chord playback. I think I'm playing back guitar, right? Yep. Chords will not swing. Chord symbol playback will not swing. It is very strange. If I choose the jazz style of human playback, you'll hear what happens when we get to those eighth notes there. You can hear that crazy situation. What it's doing is it's actually swinging the notes here underneath the guitar part, but it's not swinging the chords that are assigned to the beats in the middle here. So it's not swinging this eighth note A over C sharp. I don't know why. It's something that's lacking in the chord playback functionality. For some reason, those chord symbols will not play back, and there's no way to fix it. It's just another flaw in the chord playback programming. So that's what it is. So anyway, that is chord playback. You can use it if you want. I think it's an interesting option to kind of switch it over to playing the fretboard diagrams instead of allowing Finale to calculate the roots and suffixes for playbacks. I think that's, if you're going to do it, that seems to be a good option. So anyway, I hope this has helped. This is all you need to know and more about chord playback, and maybe more specifically how to mute the chords. And that's all there is to it. So thanks for watching once again, and come back. I think maybe one more video on cooperating with chords to come. So come back for that, and we'll wrap this up. Thanks for watching, and I will see you soon.